Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Tuesday, the 14th of November, comes to you from a very wet London. And I'm going to start today by looking at the Nasdaq. I'm being very grateful for all your comments and requests and likes and shares. Keep it up. It keeps me going. I'm very, very grateful for that. If you're watching this on YouTube, remember you can follow me on LinkedIn. I've got over 31,000 followers there on LinkedIn, so you can follow me there. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And I've had lots of questions about the target, so I want to explain them a little bit more. And today we're going to look at US stocks. We're going to look at the Nasdaq. The interesting thing here is that on the 60-minute chart, we do have this tussle going on. Remembering this is my medium-term daily, my short-term 60-minute, and I've got a long-term weekly chart with the targets on here as well of the Nasdaq. And this is a 1%, what would have been in point and figure terms box size. This is a 1% unit size, and what we're looking for is an uninterrupted thrust where we don't fall back by 1%, and then we reverse by 3%, and then we activate that target, just like you would on a point and figure. The difference is we're putting these on line charts and we're projecting them into the future. Now, there are quite a few different ways on the projection. I've done videos on this. If you want to see how that works, just feel free to message me and I'll give you a link to those videos. But the key thing is I use a slope of 2. So for every 1% of week, this is 2 weeks because we're on a weekly chart. So that's really how this works. And so here we see we were following the target and then we started diverging from the target. And this is actually one of the most useful aspects of these targets is you can see, which you wouldn't see on a point and figure chart, you can actually see when you're diverging away from the targets. That gives us a new downside target, a little mini upside target, and it's projecting that we sometime next year we could be 15 to 43% lower. There's the target range, if you like. We are above the cloud though, so this is a bit of a mixed picture. It's certainly not a foregone conclusion. Now, if we look at the medium-term chart, here we're using 0.5%, still using the factor of 2 on the upside and the downside. That means that we go up 0.5% every 2 days because we're on a daily chart, medium term. I'm reminded by the heading on the chart. So medium term, this was the target. That we had a target in March. This was an uninterrupted buying thrust where we didn't reverse by more than 0.5%. Then we reversed by more than 3 times that, by 1.5%. And then the most important thing is we activated by going higher than when that thrust was given, giving us a new upside target. It wasn't quite met, so that is a little bit bearish. And we did dip below the cloud, but now we're sort of really back above the cloud. Haven't quite yet moved above this high, and that's going to be really important to see whether we can do that. And of course, a new all-time high would start to give us the view that the Nasdaq was going to go higher still. So we are in this uncertainty phase. Now that's really showing out on the 60-minute chart. And here we're using 0.1% of the price, a unit size of 2 again. So that says every 2 hours we go up by 0.1% of the price. And here we see the targets, so downside targets given in September. Then we had these little upside targets. They happened with the price actually moved faster than the targets. You can adjust these slopes to curve fit the data if you wish, and there's 5 different ways you can do that. And again, ask me for the video on that. And here we see we did have some mini upside targets, but we just kept running away. A pullback giving us a low, that's the main ingredient. We've got a low, and now we've got an upside thrust target, and we're waiting to see whether that gets activated. Little mini downside target, and again, we're waiting to see if that gets activated. So if we can move higher today, above sort of 15.5, 10 on the Nasdaq 100, then we activate a target to 1690. So then we can start to say, looks like we're going to go higher. We're going to make a new high. So that's the really interesting situation at the moment. We're just watching and waiting for that to happen. If you want to watch this in micro terms, look at the 1-minute chart where you'll actually see the picture unfolding in real time. But for most traders and investors, the 60-minute chart is going to be enough. So that's where we are with the Nasdaq. Now, it was quite interesting yesterday. If we look at, well, first of all, we look at the future, and the future is up this morning. Not enough to activate the upside thrust here on the Nasdaq Future. So we're waiting for that to happen. We're nudging it at the moment, and we may well activate it. So that's going to be really interesting. And that will take us to about 16,325. And this target was 16,493. So maybe we will get to this target after all. But for the moment, we are in this wait and see scenario. and of course we are just nudging, taking out that previous high, so it's starting to look quite interesting for the Nasdaq, certainly. And if we look at just the S&P E-mini, we see we have actually activated the upside target here, so that is quite interesting. Now, yesterday we looked at the Dow 30. We'll just have a quick recap there. I ran through every stock. The main one that was really interesting was that Walmart was really the best looking one here. Upside targets there on the 60-minute, making new highs. And if we look at the long-term chart, on a train track, this is the sort of stocks that you want to be looking out for, and that says that in 2024, around September time, we could be 24% higher, 10% higher by March. Now, you just have to watch that trajectory, and that's the beauty of the targets, is they give you that trajectory, you just need to monitor it. Now, coming back to the Nasdaq 100, what's quite interesting is if we look at the, first of all, look at Apple. So we see here on Apple, we do have this upside target that was activated back on the 3rd of November on the 60-minute chart, some 6% higher still to run, but we do have these downside targets. These will only be removed if we move higher than the thrust points when they were given. So that's really interesting. We've not quite cleared the cloud there on the lagging line, but really interesting. And again, if we look at the long term, interesting, we've got long-term targets for Apple, but this short-term target is just hanging there. We are still above the cloud on the weekly, so the long-term trend is still in train. Now looking at some of the other stocks here, Microsoft, that's of course the next big one, and I did put out a post the other day saying that Microsoft could overtake Apple soon. It doesn't take much for Microsoft to actually start taking over Apple. And here, as the second biggest stock on the Nasdaq, interesting to see we've got a very similar picture as well with these targets on the 60-minute chart. Will they be activated? We'll find out at the close. Microsoft making new all-time highs, but we have this little pullback, enough to activate those targets. So keep an eye out there. And of course, there's stocks that are, you can look at all the stocks. So if we look at Tesla, for example, a much more mixed picture here. Downward targets. We do have a new upside target, but we are below the cloud, waiting for a target to activate it here. Much more mixed picture. And if we look at Meta, for example, we can do this for all the stocks. So that's really just how you utilize the targets here. No clear targets on the daily. On the 60-minute, we're running towards these train tracks. So you'll notice the pictures here not so clear as that chart that we looked at Walmart, where on all three charts we had upside targets. That's really what you want to be looking for. So the key thing to remember is that this Nasdaq chart, this future, that's the thing to be watching this morning. Are we going to activate that? That target will turn green when it activates, and on the actual cash market when it opens this afternoon, these targets, that will turn green if it activates. It's orange at the moment, just telling you it's there. It will turn red if we go for the downside target. So really waiting for that to play out. And I can actually put in a little alert on there, and I can say, alert me when this target changes state. So that's when it turns green, I'll get an alert for that. So really quite key there. So keep an eye on these markets. Other markets, of course, following suit. So in Europe, we're up this morning, looking more and more bullish, but we've really got to wait for this to play out. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. Remember to like or share this. Ask me anything you want. I'm happy to look at any stocks. Until tomorrow, bye for now.